I was born in Zambia, which was at that time called Northern Rhodesia. I stayed there until I was 2 years old, and then my parents, for multiple reasons, left and went to South Africa. I spent from 2 till 20 in Johannesburg, basically. It was common knowledge that you didn't try to study urbanism in England, you had to go to America for that. The only place to go in America was to Philadelphia to be at the University of Pennsylvania, because that's where the architect Louis Kahn was teaching. So that's how I came, not really to America, but to study with Lou Kahn. And then one thing led to another in America. I'd never made the decision not to go back to South Africa, but I had not gone back. I'd finished in England, started in America, and at the end of the first year, my first husband was killed. And that precipitated big choices for me. And I and everyone around me agreed that the best thing for me to do would be to finish my course in America. When I first came, the students were quiescent, but that soon changed. And we've seen the ups and downs in, for example, social concern. I was very active in the 1960s and thinking about how architecture and urbanism could meet social mandates. And then we got to the 1970s, and I found myself saying, everyone was saying, well, that's just an old hang-up of the 1960s. And I kept on saying there has to be a way of being socially concerned in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s. Now, in the 2000s, it seems to be coming back. And the youngest students now are very interested in the things that I do and write and talk about, whereas an older generation couldn't believe that those were my concerns. I mean, all I cared about was putting neon signs in buildings, wasn't it? And then how could I possibly be socially concerned if that's all I cared about? Well, it was a real misunderstanding of what Bob and I stand for. And this generation hasn't got that misunderstanding. They say, learning from Las Vegas is a social tract? Of course it is. Why did you think we thought it wasn't? My identity has been shaped on 3 continents. And it's amazing how they had a continuity between them. But the social concern that I had learnt in the first 2 countries was powerless to act. The people who wanted to tie social questions to physical questions because they were so involved with the social issues didn't know how to do it, and they said it was impossible. They said, forget about it. When I got to America, I began to learn the techniques for doing that, because the schools of architecture began to be invaded by social scientists, by economists, sociologists, political scientists, and through them there was a way to say, okay, we know the forces in society, and now we can also see how they settle on the ground. And we can see what determines that, and it's not just the designs of architects. So that gave me a lot more power to do the things I'd already started to want to do. I believe architecture bridges the sciences and the arts, even although the arts are more stressed in America. But when I told an English friend about this wonderful award that I had won, which is given to 1 scientist and 1 artist each year, he said, did they give you the award as an artist or a scientist? And that was a very European question. I wanted to be an architect from before I was 6. My mommy had studied architecture. And when I was 2, they designed and had built an international style house. That is a very modern flat-roofed house in Johannesburg. At the age of 2, I remember blueprints. It's an amazing thing. I actually have a memory of these plans that they were looking at. And then we went and lived in a rented house while our house was being built. And so my earliest childhood memories are of an international style house, which has all the possibilities for childhood fantasy that you associate with attic stairs and wood fireplaces, and pitched roofs and things like that. But there was all sorts of things you could do with a flat-roofed cubist house. I'm proud of being able to work in an interdisciplinary way. I'm proud of bringing many, many more categories of thought into architecture than had existed before me, and in showing how they can be used, not just as conceits, but as things that really affect how you work. And then I'm very proud of some of the projects I've done, and I'm proud of the teaching I've done. I'm also proud of taking the laws of economics, what they call city physics, and using it to design not only urban areas and campuses, but the insides of buildings. And I'm proud that we've added a new function to architecture, the function of communication. That fountain should be like an Edwardian lady's hat. It's probably the feathers that set us off. And then people say, how can you be inspired by feathers or by history, or how terrible? And I point out, it doesn't matter where the inspiration comes from. What is required that it fulfill its functions. Therefore, what's most important is that the final design evaluate correctly. It doesn't matter what made you have the idea. Anything you like can make you have the idea. Something to do with the function of the building or not, as the case may be. But in the end, that building must fulfill its functions. As Lou Kahn put it, you look at the result, and he said, you hate it and you hate it and you hate it until you love it because it's the only way. If I had some time off, the first thing I'd do would be sleep for 24 hours. And then when Bob and I take a vacation, we can't stop working all together. We'd get too upset and neurotic. So we work mornings, and then we spend afternoons doing what we like. And I would probably do something like that. If I took a vacation from what I'm doing now, it would be to go back to designing, but I don't have that opportunity. I've been addicted to practice. I've adored teaching while I taught, but now, after all these years in practice, the joys of practice are enormous. And the relationships with clients and others, and the opportunity to take something which is an intellectual concept and make it physical, and to do it in an orderly procedure that opens up your systems to the needs of others. There's very great joy in doing that. And so that's, if I had a vacation from my present life of writing, it would be to do that. On the other hand, to go and spend a week or so in the California desert, sitting in a little guest house there and looking out on some pretty landscape, pretty to me. I am writing up a storm. I'm thinking of the original meaning of the word living will. Living will now tells people how you want to die. Living will used to mean telling your children how they should live. So I'm thinking I'm writing living wills for my grandchildren in architecture. I would never have thought that I'd one day be on a world stage and in a very central country, a country central to everything. And girls weren't acculturated to have vaunting aspirations. Teacher would do. I didn't expect that my work would give me so much joy, and that my work would... I don't have to stop and smell the roses. The roses are right there as I work. I mean, for heaven's sake, I'm going to Japan, and I'm not a tourist there. I'm being taken by Japanese to see the things that thrill them most and to work on the projects that they are most invested in. What could be better than that? What could be more joyful? But it's through work. So that's how life has changed for me. No long Sundays at home with people playing tennis and swimming. Thank God I have Sunday to get my article written. I say You don't have to conquer uncertainty, you have to find a way to make it creative for you.